Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. Today's March 10th, and we have an unusual anniversary. It was a self-induced abortion, but the boyfriend who supplied the abortion instrument was prosecuted for conspiracy. So, just to summarize it, Carson Sterling was convicted of having conspired with 23-year-old Naomi Resh of Leacock, Township, Pennsylvania, to commit the abortion that caused her death on March 10th of 1892. Now, Carson Sterling, Naomi called him Carson, was a liveryman living in New Holland, Pennsylvania. Different sources have his age as either 25 or 29, and he had been keeping company with Naomi Resh, who was an orphan who lived with her grandfather and her two aunts in Leacock Township, Pennsylvania. The two had been a couple from June to September of 1891, but at that point, they had a quarrel and they remained apart until February of 1892 when Carson visited Naomi at home twice. Later, Naomi's Aunt Rebecca would testify that Carson was getting a dressing down from Naomi about getting her pregnant, and Carson responded by telling her to shut up or he would choke her. So, lesson number one, be a little bit fussier about the men you get involved with, because this guy was definitely a loser. Now, sometime after that, Naomi told her aunts that she was going to Philadelphia to see a doctor who would relieve her of her trouble for $100. So on February 18th, Naomi and Carson made the trip to Philadelphia, where they stayed a couple of days with Carson's aunt. The doctor was a no-show, so the couple went to New York to see Dr. H.W. Harner, who was also from New Holland, where Carson was from. He was in New York attending some professional lectures. The couple met with Harner on February 19th, and he said, she said, Naomi said that she asked Harner to perform an abortion and that he refused on the grounds that it was illegal and he'd get in trouble. Harner said that she asked him to do an abortion, but he told her it was too dangerous. Carson insists that he had no part of this conversation whatsoever, that the two had met separately. Harner said that he did meet with Carson, and Carson said he didn't want Naomi to abort the baby, he wanted to marry her. So you can see how muddled these stories get. But somehow, and the evidence is pretty strong that Dr. Harner was the one who did it. Somebody gave either Carson, the doctor gave either Carson or Naomi a catheter stiffened with a wire. And this was something that a doctor would use to commit an abortion at that time. So it wasn't like some really weird thing. This was considered an abortion instrument. If the doctor thought the woman's life was in danger and he was going to induce an abortion, he would use a rubber catheter with a wire in it to stiffen it. So with the instrument in hand, the couple went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, stayed overnight, and they returned home on February 24th. Naomi told her aunts that she would be all right soon, and Carson later came by to visit her, but the aunts turned him away. Now, Naomi took ill. During the day on February 27th, her relatives summoned a Dr. Lehman to attend to her. He found her feverishly ill and in active labor. She told him 3 times that she had tried to abort the baby using the catheter, but she didn't name Carson as the baby's father. Then about 9 o'clock that evening, Naomi's relatives called in Dr. Samuel Sample. Naomi was in active labor at that point and delivered a 5-month stillborn baby boy at around 11 o'clock. Naomi was already suffering from peritonitis and was in critical condition. Now, while Dr. Sample did his best to save her, Naomi made a statement that said in part, "Carson Sterling is the author of my trouble and the father of my child. He urged me to commit this act. We went to Philadelphia on Thursday, February 18th, he telling me that there we would meet a doctor from Christiana. The doctor failed to appear. He said we would go to New York and consult a doctor of his acquaintance. We went to New York that same evening and saw the doctor. The doctor said that he knew that I was feeling very badly about this thing, and so was Carson, and if the law was not so strict in New York, he would relieve me, but I could do it just as well myself." And again, she added that either Carson or the doctor, the sources differ, gave her the catheter and told her how to use it to dislodge her unwanted baby. And Naomi said that Carson told her to let him know if she took ill and he'd send a doctor to care for her if she didn't want to call her own doctor closer to home. So on returning home on the 24th, she tried to use the catheter and failed, tried again on the 25th, and this time found it painful and I guess concluded that yes, this was going to dislodge the baby. Naomi also told Dr. Sample, Carson Sterling made me promise that if anything happened to me, I was to take a false oath and clear him from all blame. The doctor in New York did not tell me there was any danger, but I was led to believe I could manage it as well as anyone. And before you guys go jumping all over the place about, oh, the self-induced abortion, it's safe and legal. We've got doctors right now telling women, giving women these abortion pills and telling them it's perfectly safe to manage their abortion at home. That is no different from this doctor handing this woman a catheter and telling her it was perfectly safe to do it at home. Absolutely no difference. These doctors who are dispensing these abortion pills know that the women could suffer potentially fatal complications. They're sending them the pills, no ultrasound, no testing, no arrangements for follow-up. Just here, do-it-yourself home abortion. No different from what was happening in this case. So Dr. Sample wrote up Naomi's statement, read it to her so she could agree that it was accurate, and then had her sign it. In spite of the best he could do, Naomi died at around 9 p.m. on Thursday, March 10th. Sample promptly left to the home of district attorney, whose last name I cannot pronounce. He arrived at about 2 o'clock in the morning and presented him with Naomi's deathbed statement. The district attorney sent Dr. Sample to the police station with the deathbed statement and a note telling them to quickly arrest Carson Sterling on charge of procuring an abortion and manslaughter. So the authorities took swift action, arresting Carson before daybreak at the boarding house where he lived. Now, if he had given her abortion pills in the safe and legal era and she had died, nothing bad would have happened to him, even though he would have known that she could die from this. But again, you know, that's as long as the abortion happens. It's the legal status, right? So Carson was reportedly shocked to learn of Naomi's death. He said that he and Naomi had been engaged and intended to marry in the fall, but that the plan was hastened that he learned Naomi was pregnant. And he said that they left Naomi's house. He was planning to take her to Camden, New Jersey to get married, but when they got as far as Philadelphia, Naomi backed out, and he said he knew nothing about the abortion. Lots of different stories. The coroner went to the home where Naomi had died, where she lived with her grandfather and her aunts, to conduct an inquest accompanied by a jury of 6 men. And the conclusion of the inquest was, from all evidence, deceased met her death from pelvic cellulitis and peritonitis, the remote cause of which was brought on by an abortion at her own hands. Carson was released on $2,000 bail pending trial. He was originally charged with involuntary manslaughter, abortion, and conspiracy, but after the witnesses were examined, the manslaughter and abortion charges were dropped. Harner testified during the trial that he had indeed met with Carson and Naomi at the Bartholdi Hotel. And again, like I said, Harner testified that Carson said he wanted to marry Naomi. A Dr. Schaefer of Christiana admitted to knowing Carson Sterling, but denied that he had agreed to perpetrate an abortion at all, much less for $100. Witnesses were called during the trial who knew one or both of the pair and had seen them at various points in their journey, but none of them indicated that they knew the purpose of the trip. And Naomi's aunts testified as to all they had heard and observed, and they identified the lethal catheter. Carson was convicted of conspiracy to commit abortion in Naomi's death, but he appealed his conviction on the grounds that the only testimony against him was by a co-conspirator, and there was no actual evidence implicating him. He gained a new trial in April of 1893, and the judge directed a verdict of not guilty. But again, people who are going to, oh, this all happened, that's not saying abortion, blah, 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 blah. This is no different from the way doctors are just dispensing abortion pills right now. They had a woman in Nevada died. Planned Parenthood gave her abortion pills that they knew could cause fatal infection, rapid onset fatal infection, and they just sent her home. Here, you're on your own. That's no different from what happened in Naomi's death.